For a lot of people, the news didn't feel shocking. It felt quiet. No breaking alert, no dramatic farewell, just a headline that passed through timelines and disappeared. MTV News was shutting down. And if you grew up in the last 30 years, that sentence should feel heavier than it did. Because MTV News wasn't just another media outlet, it was the place where music, youth, and reality collided. Back when artists weren't brands yet, back when culture moved slower, and when asking the right question mattered more than being first. MTV News understood something early that most media missed. Music wasn't entertainment on the side, it was identity. It was protest. It was how a generation explained itself. When Kurt Cobain spoke, it wasn't about headlines. When hip-hop evolved, it wasn't treated like a trend. When pop culture intersected with politics, MTV News didn't flinch. They showed up at the center of youth culture and stayed there. But that world doesn't exist anymore. The internet changed how stories travel. Speed replaced context. Clicks replaced credibility. And attention became the only real currency. That's where the pressure started. MTV News didn't suddenly become bad at journalism. It became expensive journalism. Long interviews don't scale well on social feeds. Careful reporting doesn't win algorithm wars. And cultural depth doesn't always convert into ad revenue. So slowly, quietly, the cracks formed. Budgets shrank. Teams got smaller, coverage narrowed, and then came the decision. In 2023, parent company Paramount Global announced restructuring. Layoffs followed, and MTV News was gone. The explanation was corporate language: cost-cutting, efficiency, focus. But what that really meant was simple. Culture journalism lost the math problem. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. People didn't stop caring about music. Companies stopped paying to cover it properly. Platforms want speed, brands want safety, algorithms want repetition. MTV News offered something else: perspective. It trained journalists who knew how to listen, who knew when to step back, who understood that youth voices aren't disposable content, and when it vanished, there was no replacement waiting. That's why the silence feels strange. There's more content than ever, more opinions, more clips, but less understanding. MTV News didn't shout, it contextualized. It didn't chase outrage, it explained why something mattered. And that approach doesn't survive easily in today's media ecosystem. So the shutdown wasn't just about one brand ending, it was a signal, a sign of what gets sacrificed when profit becomes the only filter. When journalism has to justify itself every quarter. When culture is measured only by engagement metrics. MTV News proved that youth journalism could be serious without being boring, political without being preachy, and emotional without being manipulative. Now it's gone, not with a bang, but with a fade. And maybe that's the most MTV News ending possible, because it always reflected the moment it lived in. And this moment doesn't slow down long enough to mourn what it loses. The brand is gone, the archive remains, the influence still echoes, in the journalists it trained, in the way music is still discussed, in the gap you feel when you realize no one is quite doing it the same way anymore. MTV News didn't just report culture, it took culture seriously. And that's why its absence feels louder than its ending ever was.